It's also important to let you know that I'm not alone today. Blessing is here, putting on the same color, what a divine arrangement, if you call that. But let me know, let me hear your opinion as regards to this outfit is actually planned. Let's have your feedback to see how it looks like. It's our feature color, and we're trying that to add glamour to the program. Blessing is here this morning. How are you
You seem
today?
very excited about the color match.
Interestingly, blue is my favorite.
Oh, no wonder. I think next time it should be green. So it will be your favorite. Good morning, Femi. Great
How
to
you
see you
doing?
in the
Good to
new
see you
week.
again. How's your weekend?
Well, the weekend is short. It seems like Saturday, Sunday runs on maybe 15 hours per day and
Yeah,
not up to 24 hours.
it's always like that. Today's public holiday, but not for us
Oh,
anyway.
yes, because we must do our duty to ensure that people are well informed and entertained even as they stay home to celebrate the public holiday. And we felicitate our Muslim brothers and sisters on this day, marking the birthday of the Prophet Muhammad. So, you're free to send some rice and stew, very plenty, to us in celebration of this day. But that's not all we're doing today.
Yeah.
We've talked about some issues that will be looked into, which is the tax regime in the US and also the cash transfer program in Nigeria. On a day like this, Nigerians really like some cash.
Yeah.
And so far, the cash transfer program, according to the federal government, have been ongoing. But the IMF is asking that they extend to the rural areas, which I think would be a good thing. And like Femi asked you at the beginning of the show, if you received the cash in the course of the cash transfer program, you can just leave a comment and let us know where you reside. And if you hope to, let us know where is your area. Let's talk about it. But for now, we need to travel to the US because that's where the show will start from this morning. And we need to look at what's happening with the US. That's a new rule, the 15% minimum tax for corporations. But Femi, the thing is, even before that tax rule of 15% minimum tax payable by corporations, that have a taxable income of about $1 billion. As of 2017, it was 21% that was the minimum tax. And even at that time, the rate of tax avoidance was still high. But they're hoping that bringing it to 15% as a way to reduce inflation and also encourage companies to pay tax, that would change. Do you have hopes as well as the US Treasury?
The issue of tax evasion, as it's not a new thing, it's an age-long practice where you have big companies trying to do that in their own interest. But now the U.S. Department of Treasury and Internal Revenue Service, just like our own Internal Revenue Service here, deems it fit to correct the narrative. So now you discover over these years, because these companies, they can hire accountants and lawyers who could provide the strategy.
And get very smart with the books.
With their books. And then, so you now discover that rather than paying the 15% now, which is being proposed now, some of them pay zero taxes or as low as 2.6%. And so Joe Biden administration is coming up with a new tax policy to ensure that the big companies who ought to pay taxes, at the expo, they've been doing this at the expense of the small businesses, even at the expense of professionals like nurses, lawyers, who even pay more taxes than they should do. And so they're coming up with this new law. If it takes effect, which is expected to take effect from next year, but it's going to be subjected to public review in January. And so it's expected to generate about $250 billion for the next 10 years. So in 2025, it's projected it's going to generate $20 billion. So if you expand that within the space of 10 years, the U.S. Treasury Department is expected to get a revenue of about $250 billion. And if you look at some of these companies that are being targeted, they are big companies whose annual profit, or what you call profit threshold annually, is between $1 billion or 500 to $1 billion. So why they are being targeted is because to correct the inequality in the tax system in the US, where you see the big companies who want to provide or set the pace when it comes to tax payment, they are not doing that. And you now realize that the small businesses, even professionals and individuals, are paying more taxes than these big companies. Now, there are some who said, okay, perhaps it's political. It's a political year in the US whereby Joe Biden administration is coming up with this initiative. There are some people who question the timing. But for me, it is not the
Like what
time.
happened to doing this
Yeah,
over the last 4 years?
you understand. It's been in pipeline, but there's a new framework on what you call CAMT. That's the Corporate Alternative Minimum Tax, so which is expected to cater for this kind of arrangement. And if you also observe that over time, some of these companies, because they have the wherewithal, to bypass the system, they've done that consistently. And now there's a need to call them to order, to ask them to do what is right. And that's why the US Treasury Department is saying, hey, we need to correct this narrative. Having lost money over the year, Reverend, imagine about in 2050 alone, 2025, sorry about that. 2025, they're expected to generate $20 billion. So imagine if these are started longer before now,
how much they
will have
would
been made?
have generated, and
that's
how
why it's
much
important.
this money is needed by
Yeah.
the US at a time where the debt level in US is very much high and citizens are becoming worried about it. Well, let's find out from our guest what he thinks about the new rule for 15% minimum tax on biggest, most profitable companies in the US. Joining us virtually this morning is Professor Godwin Oyedokun, who is a professor of accounting and financial development, Lead University Ibadan. Is also a council member, Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, CITN, and a chartered accountant, chartered banker. So this man has been chatted to talk about this this morning. Good morning. Welcome to Real Exchange.
Good morning, my colleagues over there, and I want to believe that you are not jealous of those of us that are doing various homes. And I listened to the part where you were trying to use the old saying that rice and beans, maybe rice alone should be sent plentifully, if that English is correct. So good morning, gentlemen and lady, and good morning to our listener.
Thank you so much. I must say your profile is impressive, and that's why you fit the spot to talk about the issues this morning about the tax regime in the US.
Thank
Now,
you.
looking at where the US is coming from, dropping the minimum tax payable by corporations, by companies, big companies in the US from 21% to 15% to encourage, to serve as some incentive for them to pay tax. As what has been observed over the time is that some of these companies avoid tax. Do you think this incentive is good enough? Will companies still find a way to avoid paying tax? What are your thoughts on this new regime?
Okay, so some of us don't operate in US environment, but whatever happens in United States of America should actually interest some of us wherever we think we are in the world. However, let's start by looking at this within the spirit of time that we have. That for any system of taxation to do that which it purported to do, such tax system must be in obedience to what every one of us have realized that canon of taxation should be. So I think anything that will make the burden of anyone around any country to be reduced should be welcomed. So that's number one. Number two, the tax system all over the world mimic the big market, big country of UK, US nature and other parts of the world. So whatever goes on there, we have a kind of effect on our economic as well in Nigeria. You will recall that whenever the law is being passed over there, some of our lawmakers, some of our agencies, we also want to go in that manner and be making reference to that. So how will this affect organization, especially multinational organization within the United States of America or whoever has jurisdiction to be under their fiscal regime? It means that if you are to part away with certain amount of money, the reduction in the rates, as we talk about it, which is 15% minimum tax, we have same effect in terms of what directly will be parted away. However, the multiplier effect of it should help the organization. Then when you talk about the concept of avoiding taxes, I'm not sure people that are indulging in any acts will be persuaded by any plot of government to reduce that burden. I say it in this manner. Act of tax avoidance is what has been there even when tax rates were not this high. Okay, some people will just do what they want to do without minding whose earth is God. So you will realize that it suits some people. Let's speak our street language to even do bad things. So, and my studies in forensic has showed me over time that when good people do bad things, they are motivated with certain elements, which, if time permits, we can discuss on this news. So, good for people that really want to pay and they don't have capacity to pay. Yes, the policy will help. But for those that really do not want to be within the space of the net, they will find all means not to still be good for the system. I don't know whether I can stop here to wait for your further question.
All right, that's interesting, Prof. Glad to have you join us once again. Now, let's
Thank you.
focus on the companies that have been targeted here. You have large companies, and according to the specification here, companies that generate about $1 billion annually. Now, if this new policy is being implemented, what do you think will be the impact of these on these large companies paying 50% corporate tax on, as this thing will kick off? What will be the impact on their businesses, on their operations, and what will likely play out in coming few months if this policy is implemented? Give us a picture.
Well, the imposition of a 50% minimum tax on large corporation with annual revenue exceeding $1 billion, we definitely have a lot of potential effect on companies, and I can categorize this kind of effects in so many areas. But let's talk about tax burden, and if you want it, we can say it increased tax burden as well. Don't forget that payment of tax or taxes is not enough. The filing strategy and regime is also part of the problem any organization will face. If I don't have anything to pay to government and I'm not under compulsion to file returns, I may really be so free and go on with my business. But if that is there, then that is one of it. So under this tax burden, you will know that companies that have been able to shift profits to low tax jurisdiction will now face higher effective tax rates. That's one point I need us to know about the tax burden aspect of this policy. And this could also reduce profitability and potential they are leading in the high prices for their consumer. Because don't forget, these people are not doing business because they love God. They are doing business because they want to improve on their own wealth. So if you take it from them, from certain area, they will definitely come back in another area to get this money back, and then they pass it through expenditure profile. So you talk about price, but if you look at the reduced incentive for profit shifting, that is, when they will no longer be able to shift profits to other what we call tax haven, the minimum tax aim to discourage corporation from engaging in this strategy of shifting profits. That's one of those implications that we have, which could be for both government and the company, and it could lead to a more what we call level playing field for business operating in the country, that is United States of America. Another category that can quickly give us is the impact on investment decision. Don't forget that this issue of taxation, economy, finance, they all boil down to some decision that some certain people in the certain claims we want to make in order to ensure that they continue to be in business in one way or the other. So when you look at the first point I gave, which has to do with higher tax burden, it will also affect investment decision, as company may be less likely to invest in that country, which is United States of America. And if this tax environment is less favorable, of course, no one wants to do business with us. And if you link that to what we were arguing with in our country, that if there's no security in an environment where people want to come and invest, definitely people will not want to bring their money to where they will not be able to sleep well. So also, if this issue of tax burden, we continue to strengthen them, it will also make the investment opportunity less likely, except for other factors. However, the minimum tax may also encourage companies to invest in activities that qualify for tax deduction or credit. So people will now need to consult more with their tax practitioners, tax professionals, to ensure that they look at, I don't like calling it loopholes in law, the provisions of law within fiscal regime and jurisdictional wise, and select which of the activities they can actually invest in. This may, in the short run, not be in the interest of the country, while in the long run, it will definitely survive for themselves. And if I may give us 2 more points, I will talk about administrative burden as well, which means compliance with this policy that adds to the administrative burden for the companies itself. And I may also want to say that even the government that wants to push this forward, they need to adjust some certain things to ensure that they are able to do. So it will also require them to track their global income and calculate their effective tax rates as it is. And the last point I want to tell us on this, if I see have this time, is potential for tax avoidance. And while you are talking about this minimum tax, don't forget that this thing is intended to prevent profit shifting. But it's also possible that a corporation may find way to circumvent the rule. But by and large, the impact of this minimum tax on corporation will depend on their specific circumstances at the time and how they are looking at it, and the effectiveness of the enforcement mechanism put in place by the government. I don't know whether I've talked too much.
No, you haven't talked too much, and you have the time to expand as much as you want. But one of the aim of this 15% minimum tax payable by large companies in the US is to increase tax fairness. So on the side of the ordinary citizens, they pay Social Security tax. So for employees, it's the rate is about 6.2%, but the employer is to pay a match to match up what they pay by paying an additional 12.4%. But if you're self-employed, what the person pays, but what the employee would pay and the employer, which comes to about 15.3%. So if you base that 15.3% for ordinary citizens, Social Security tax, and large corporations are to pay 15% minimum tax, though the amount is not the same, but do you think that dropping or reducing the minimum tax for large companies actually achieves the goal of tax fairness?
Now, in the system of taxation, don't forget that taxing anybody can never be fair. People don't want to part away with any of their incomes. So whether you reduce it, increase it, so far the concept of taxation continue to be compulsory in nature, it is not fair. However, I will submit by saying a reduction in tax rates definitely will bring tax fairness. It will bring tax justice. It will bring encouragement, notwithstanding which other aspect of the country is being looked into. So yes, the fairness in it may be relative, and I think it's still not as bad as not having it reduced at all.
All right, now still on this issue of tax evasion, I would like to make reference to what the U.S. Deputy Secretary, Treasury Secretary said about the practice in the U.S. One would have expected that in a place like U.S. where they have a formalized system of tax regime, the issue of tax evasion wouldn't be a big deal. But here what he said, and I would like you to take a listen. He said, some of these big companies, they use accountants and lawyers to reduce tax bills down to zero. Gives these corporations competitive advantage over small businesses. That's according to Wale Adeyemo. It's a Nigerian and is the deputy Treasury Secretary in the US. Now, he has given us a picture of what is playing out, what some of these big corporations do when it comes to tax evasion. Talk to us. Why do you think it's a big deal in a place like US where things are formalized? The tax regime, the tax system is formalized, even technological driven, but yet you still have this issue of tax evasion, hiring accountants and lawyers to doctor their books and to get results. Why do you think it's still a big deal? And what is the lesson here for the US and the rest of the world?
Okay, so let's go dramatic small. Where do you think we learn all these bad things in Nigeria? Is it not from them? The dictionary meaning of fraud, theft, embezzlement, extortion, misappropriation, misapplication. Where do you think those English words come from? They are the master of all this, and they can always do it better with technology because they invented all those things. Our guys are just trying to understand them. And as you can see, even copying it now means that our own person is also helping them over there. So which means we are not bad at all, honestly. So let's come back to the dictate of this. There are provisions of laws. There are accounting shenanigans. There are rules of accounting. There are principles, there are conventions, there are concepts. And in accounting, we have these, what we call qualitative characteristics for useful financial information. You will not go into tax without passing through these accounting shenanigans. So we have accounting methods, and these methods are acceptable. They also give it to us one way or the other, this same set of people you are talking about. And they told us that in order to value our stocks, we can use X, Y, Z methods, and anyone we use will be fine. In also valuing part of our depreciation, we can also use this. Now, if I choose any of this method, then I'll look at the characteristics of this method. Which one speak to my temperament? Which one will enhance my capability to achieve from this without violating any law? Then I explore it because I'm intelligent, right? And I have reduced profit. How does that go against law? But in our ethical background training, we have agreed that when you use a particular method in accounting, please, for consistency's sake and for comparability's sake, use it for minimum of 2, 3, 4 years. That's where the likes of our brother that you just mentioned his name now can come from. So increasing tax rate, reducing tax rate will not change my accounting brain on how to explore provision of accounting or tax law or even law itself in order to ensure that I protect the organization for which I work for. The only problem I will have is when I move on that thin line to the criminal aspect of it. Now, let's come back so that we don't teach people bad things. You hardly we have fraudulent issue in terms of tax or accounting if you don't take care of accountants and lawyers. Honestly, those two people, set of professionals, you need national conference, international conference to talk to them, because without them, you can't perpetrate all these things that we're talking about. I don't want to come to public something and be telling you this. I'm invariably belonging to those two professions by training and by academic qualification. So my brother is very right on that. But the system that is trying to clean can never be clean one day, because you need to talk about law that allow me to use concepts that has been accepted for long. You also need to change the orientation of people towards why they should labor. That's the way people feel it. Labor to now come and give some set of people that are better than me part of what I have. The sense is that no matter how developed the system is, you see the cases of Trump and going to court all the time. No matter how big anybody is, when it comes to their businesses, if you want to tamper with what they have, they will also find strategies, and they can pay a lot of money to even hire accountant and lawyer to do the needful. So my own is that those things that they are trying to do may not work very well because we have principles in all these treatment of financial transaction. And it is when we are done with the preparation of financial statements, you will not be able to do effective tax on that. If I have time, I still have more to discuss about that. Thank you.
Prof, as a follow-up to some of the points you've raised now, I need to be very sure if I heard you correctly. Are there instances where you can do, for lack of better words now, let me put it this way, what you call ethical tax evasion by accountants and lawyers? Are you, by your statement, implying this is possible?
No, don't put ethical and evasion or avoidance together. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we've been trained to be on ethical paths, to maintain high standard of ethical transaction. But don't forget, even when God creates people, we still have people that are directly created by God, still having issue with God. So there's no way you will erase this completely. You can only continue to see what is good and preach it and make sure that people in your circle can obey it. Those accountants in United States of America, don't they belong to professional body certified by US government? They are. So also we have in Nigeria. If I choose not to do bad thing, yes, I am trying to protect the name of my family, I'm protecting my profession, and I'm protecting the generation to come after me. But that's not the case of everybody, because system also will tell you how to operate it. If some of us, including you yourself, choose to be on the part of investigative journalism that you are doing, so be it. That does not mean that we don't have some journalists that are not doing well research. What you are dishing out, you are also making me to realize what is going on elsewhere. So that's what I'm saying, that typically we can do better. But when it comes to avoidance and evasion, it's really, really not what we should be linking to ethics. But once you pass the line of provisions of law, especially tax law, you are going to that side, which is not ethical in nature. But let me also now pin it down for us here, that if law says, especially when we used to have the law in Nigeria that says before you can pay your personal income tax, you have allowance to be deduct for your wife, children to the maximum of 4. And I'm 55 years of age. And I believe that what I have is not enough for me. And I went there and said, yes, I have 5 children. And maybe I don't have a wife, and I say I have a wife. You know, those things may be difficult to trace in the claims where you don't have data, where you are having separate data for international passport, separate data for driver's license, separate data for even birth. You can go anywhere and get birth certificate everywhere in the same country where we are all shouting. How will you trace, how will you encourage tax justice in this kind of environment? So the system will permit to the extent to which system want to protect. So in the United States of America, like you have said, that they have technology that we are also borrowing from, people write those codes and they can bypass it. Okay? People, if you say you know book, you are getting decision. What about we that will write the book? So you do want to know it more than us? You say you know about information technology and AI, but we wrote the code. So what happened? So the system should also know that this most important set of people they should be careful of are the most intelligent set of people around them that does this thing. So if they don't have opportunity to do it, and that was why I was talking about why good people will still continue to do bad things. And Don Akrisi has been able to explain that through his theory. Thank you.
All right. So the U.S. Treasury seems to be in a dilemma, which they have accepted, maybe resigned to fate, because the 15% minimum tax was actually set up, and they say that regardless of the deductions, regardless of the application for tax breaks and exploitation of certain loopholes, the minimum companies should be able to pay 15% tax. So that seemed like it's up to companies that really want to follow the rule and pay the 15%. If they choose to explore other avenues to evade tax, they may as well get away with it. Where does that leave the US? And what is the role of tax haven in this?
Okay, so we've discussed so many concepts in this your statement now. You talk about tax haven, the minimum tax, and the effect on the company. So let's quickly look at this. If you are able to evade tax before this regime of 15% minimum tax, it means you would no longer be able to do so. But if you want to do so, you need more professionals. So you need more professionals to help you check your financial wise and do tax check, so that you see where the law in other way allow you to do certain things. If the law, for example, in Nigeria, because I don't study more of tax law in the United States of America, but we all have things that look alike. If the law says, I'm coming into new environment, I'm coming to a business newly, have these allowances to claim. If I'm ignorant of that law and I did not claim that, then I'll pay tax on my income, which I have not put into consideration the provisions of law. So if I now realize that I'll be paying more, and I sat down, I call professional on the right table and say, this is the nature of my business. Can we profile this business? Where in this law existing in this country can I have reliefs? And I explore those reliefs. That's not criminal in nature. But before, because the tax rate wasn't anything big, just look at what environment in Nigeria is telling us now. Before, you could go to market and buy things, and when you are coming home, you buy something for your children. But these days, you buy on need-to-use basis. How many of us go to market and buy clothes just because we see them? No. I remember my last three trips. I just came back 2 days ago. I couldn't even buy one single shirt for myself. I just went on my budget. That's what we are talking about. That it is when the system is no longer comfortable that you now realize that you need to cut your budget. And the thing the corporation will do is to look into their expenditure profile, look into their income profile. What are those allowable income that will not be subjected to tax? What are those expenses that, like, if I incur within the space of my business, I don't need to use it to reduce my profitability for the purpose of taxes? Then they will exploit it, and they have not contravened any law. Now, government is also wise in its wisdom by saying, pay whether you make profit or not, or whether or not you are fine, you pay 15% of as minimum tax. So it means they've gotten what they felt that they should get. So fair enough on both sides. Now, what is the effect of this on tax haven? Water will continue to find its level. Put water down anywhere. When you are increasing the movement in terms of topography, when the water gets to that level and you tax more, it will flow to the other side. So also, it can only be within short period of time. People will study. People are intelligent. They will study what is there and look at that jurisdiction where this will work. But don't forget, the United States of America is also not daft. They will have tightened all those movements here and there. And that's why the issue of BEPS and the likes are there, which I may not be able to discuss on this call. So tax haven will always be there. But now that I know there's a place people can go in order to shift my profit, then I'll go and make regulation to make it not possible for them to do so. And that's what US and my brother in charge, which is deputy over there, is already trying to, because idiots don't get to that level. Thank you. I don't know whether I've covered those 3 points or thereabouts.
Prof, it's interesting to know you have a Nigerian out there in the US who is trying to correct the narrative. And that's to tell you that we should be proud of ourselves here. But now
I'm
let's look
very
at
proud.
the political, development or the political dimension to this conversation. As we speak, the committee is proposing 15% increase. But the President Joe Biden, as indicated earlier, is desire to increase it to 21%. However, given the political landscape and the fact that the election is just few months away, would you advise him to toe this path? And do you expect whoever is going to become the next president to also revisit this? What's your expectation?
One thing about that environment is that their governance is here, their political issue is there. And if you look at all of them and their ideology, it's only in Nigeria that you don't have politicians that have ideology. I'm so sorry to say this, but that's the truth. They know what they are doing, irrespective of who is coming. They also have their plans. So unless a matter that will destroy their country, they will follow it. They will follow it, whoever is coming. And if matter is controversial in nature and there's nothing they can do, they would rather beg and allow the citizens to still move with it. So for the interest of them doing well in that country, I think anything that will make them get all the revenue they deserve should be welcomed by any political something. And I look at Joe Biden that you're talking about. Two things, except for the fact that he may want his party to win. I may tell you that anything he does now should be in the interest of the United States, because the only interest he has now is his political party. It's not as if he's going now as to the election. So you may want to reminisce on this and think about it, that if he's planning this, it is in Nigeria that you will see a governor that will say Okada should not pass through this place. And when it is 2 weeks to election, he will relax the law. So after the election, they will still come out. Who is deceiving? These people are not like us. So I don't envisage that. If they don't have mind, if they don't believe in anything, they will come to the public. Everybody will analyze it. And do you know that? Why do you think Joe Biden did not go on with his ambition? Is it not because of public statement? Will that happen in Nigeria? Can that happen in Nigeria? No. So let's leave these people with their way of life. They are better handling it. Thank you.
All right, let's come to Nigeria, being that you practice in Nigeria, and Nigeria also has significant problem of tax evasion. So in Nigeria, the minimum tax for corporations, for companies, is 30%. Given the current inflation rate and what the US is also trying to do by dropping the tax rates payable by large companies to 50%, that is part of the Inflation Reduction Act. What would you recommend for Nigeria in light of the growing inflation and a current company tax rate of 30%?
Well, in Nigeria, we have a peculiar case, and I think we are getting by, and without prejudice, we have a committee on ground currently looking at this issue. Okay, and I don't know, delay defeat equity. I've listened to Taiwo Ayodele's comments here and there. I'm not afraid to talk about it, but the truth be told, we need general overhauling of our tax system. we need general overhauling of this, and this is what he's trying to do. And in it, grapevine is part of how to fill the pulse of the society. We will continue to have tax evasion and avoidance in Nigeria for a very long time. And the reason is this: we do not have the system that can track anybody. The enumeration they think they have is not correct. I don't have the correct one, but I know what they have is not correct. We have multiple faces in Nigeria to everything. For the past years that I've been traveling, when I carry 2 phones in US, UK, Germany, South Africa, people laugh at me. My colleagues over there will laugh. You think this is Nigeria where one network will not work? That's why you have 2. That's an insult. That even when you want to get active GSM subscriber, you can't only me 5 times because I have 5 SIMs, Abi. These are the way where we can track everybody. So out of the active one, I use maybe 1. But others are also active. And when you are doing your sensor, you are getting information, you are counting all of us, including those that will buy SIM today, destroy it and buy another one tomorrow. Your NCC told us that we should do this, everything will be okay. What happened to our NIN? You can't get any correct, adequate data. So what do you want to do from there? I was looking for the last time, the date I entered United States. And when I searched on the internet, it directed me to a particular link. And when I click on it, I saw the date I entered, the last time I entered the United States of America on the internet. Oyedokun Godwin Emmanuel. But where each time I enter my own international airport in Lagos, custom officer that profiled me when I was going will still be asking me, what is my address in Nigeria? What is my GSM? Does that portray us to be serious in this country? When I traveled to South Africa just last week, I control my passport only on one desk. Well, in Nigeria, somebody will wear mufti and say you should come. They will collect it and be asking you foolish questions. And then they will now say, after you have killed successfully, you will now still go and re-kill in front of some people that wore another uniform. And you just laugh, smile. And I want to believe the number of gates to your house is the number of risk to that house. So evasion will continue because you didn't even have my profile, despite the fact that I passed through within 3 days. How do you trace whether I've taken money out of the country? So how will you know whether the profit in my company, if I have any, has not been moved out? Because it's just only a question. Now, let's leave that. The organization that you are striving to death, how do you think they will be supportive in nature to you? How do you think they will be supportive? They will not be supportive because you don't even understand what they pass through. So they will tell you to come and investigate. And the more you look, the less you see. So tax evasion avoidance will continue in that manner. If I'm not wasting your time, we have to wait for what Ayodele committee will do, because he is promising now that VAT may be increased for big companies, so which means we get more. But I tell you, it's only this set of people that have been paying before that will continue to still pay. Those that are outside will still not be able to. And it's promising small companies that no problem. All the small companies are on and that don't have. Now we have 25% threshold, 25 million threshold, but he's trying to increase it to 50 so that it can accommodate. Yes, it means officially people will be evading without is officially given. So that one will no longer be called tax avoidance or whatever. I'm looking at your time as well. And in the next 30 seconds, I should round up. So let's wait for those things and see how we can now explore. But big company will continue to pay higher, and the lower one in order to help the society. But I bet you it's because of the insult on the government that everything is tight. That's why they are trying to now relax those small companies. Thank you. Let me stop here before you ask me to stop.
All right, we wouldn't even ask you to stop now. We still have a few questions. Now,
Okay.
having started that conversation about the Taiwo Ayodele-led committee, I would like you to recommendations. You've been following what that committee has been doing in the last 1 year. Now, I would like you to talk about some of the critical areas you think this committee should focus on in order to improve the tax system or the tax regime in Nigeria. If you are to make recommendations to this committee, what will they be?
Hey, thank you so much. They have so much information that I don't have, and it will be difficult for me to recommend based on my limited information. But because we are in this system together, you recall my last time on this it should be here, yes, when I was challenging the meaning of small companies or informal sector. Yes, we were challenging what do they mean by informal sector. If you see his interview recently, he's been able to now say, okay, those sector will now be what the company and another matter 2020 has already told them to be those that are having that are not in proper light, and the company that now operate below 25 million as of today may fall because most of them will not have income on that level. I want to applaud them for that. But the issue is that the original meaning of informal sector may not make this work, because if they are informal, it means you don't also know them for certain. It means you do not have their enumeration correctly. So they need to work on that very well and be sure. He has his strategy. He's a colleague, and I give it to him. But he's not working alone. He's working with a lot of people, and everybody will bring their influence on him. So he should realize that when we want to mention the name of that committee, we call it Taiwo Ayodele committee, no matter what. So he will still be answerable to everybody. And when he's out of that place, he's coming to meet us in the society. Then we'll run whatever policy they are dropping. We'll now run it together with his children also. So they should be careful of what they are using their power to dish out for now, because we will all be there. Those directors in federal revenue, those days, we are all outside now, killing again for what they made us to kill for. So that's my one. Again, this issue of essential commodities that fall under what the lower cadre of Abraham Maslow hierarchy of needs, they should do it with all seriousness that it deserves. He mentioned it, that even rent be tinkered with, all those things that make shelter, food so difficult. By using English to call ourselves thieves, they need to be careful. Because when you say basic food items and processed food items, they are all food items. So this issue of asking that basic food items should be exempted and processed food item may not be. Don't forget now that as you grow in the ladder of your career, you are also living certain level. That does not mean that you should die, because it is difficult for me now, not because I chose it, to leave my table within morning and 5 or 6 o'clock because of the nature of my job. It means if I want to eat, I may not be able to drive out again or trek out to go and be looking for basic food item because I want to escape tax. Definitely somebody will still send food to me, which has been processed, and you still want me to pay tax. But my salary has never been increased. So we should look at that very well, that you are not supposed to solve a problem and continue to create another one. This, I'm just talking for the first time. I don't even thought about it, but I know that you are looking at me, you also may not really want somebody to use cup to the stream and give you water. Definitely you will get bottled water. And it's not because you have this money, but that is what is permissible, available within your reach. So classification of basic food items should be expanded. I'm not talking about shawarma. I'm not, but if I must eat rice and there is no, I can't go out, then somebody must get rice from me from eateries, or what do you call it? That does not still make it international food item. It's still basic food item. Okay, so I like the fact that the proposed increase in the VAT is not going to affect companies that are referred to as small companies or big companies. And I also like to say that they should not allow anybody to change their mind in changing that good part they are doing, because it's trying to project 50 million instead of 25. Okay, instead of 25, is now saying, okay, it should be 50. So, which means so many organizations will be captured. And let me tell you what organization has done within the space of time of the initial categorization. I don't want to pay tax, Abi. And you say I can only pay tax if I have turnover above 25. I'll just talk to God, please make me sufficient within this band, and I'll be fine. Who lose? You think I lose? No, I may not. But the society will be in for it. So people force themselves to be within that threshold of turnover, and they are just being okay within their micro-nuclear family. However, when you expand the scope, then people will be encouraged to do more business, one, get more, and then they can't cope with it, and they must get people to support them. So with that, you will see that we will also have a society that will love the government. I want to quickly talk about issue of petrol and CNG that I listened to your colleagues giving the news. You are encouraging us to move to CNG, but immediately you started encouraging us to do that, the prices of such products increased. So which one is now better, price of gas or price of petrol?
That's on a different day. But for now, let's focus on the tax regimes in the US and then in Nigeria. Let's look at tax haven and how they grew, how they were even formed. While one cannot clearly say that tax haven is illegal or legal, but they also have some benefits. For any country that is a tax haven, there are benefits that they get. But the benefit that they get is injurious to the global tax system. Is there a way to tackle the menace of tax haven?
Well, international law made it so clear that I have sovereignty over my land. So why do you want to put your nose in my country if I give enabling environment in my family and you don't give in your own family? And somebody wants to become a member of my family, so be it. Okay? Even when we say if you cannot be president if you have another citizen, even the current election that we just witnessed, they have their way to work around it. So also, people can have other passports, and when there is boom, they go. So that's a reason why people are leaving your home to another place. Can you look at it? So that the environment will be conducive. I remember when I was just coming up as a professional, the likes of, I don't want to mention companies, they push out their initial public offer or whatever. Immediately they got that, some of them leave Nigeria, and nobody defended us till tomorrow. So people will go to where they can be accommodated. And that's a saying that I always have, that talent will move to where talent is needed. So that is on general notes that I have my sovereignty on my land. I can only surrender my sovereignty to the extent to which we collaborate within the regional permissible something. And that's why in Commonwealth, we have this agenda of tax treaty, which is automatically, if you are a member of that. So those are the provisions of law that make this tax burden to be reduced. So tax haven will continue to be there, but don't forget, in Nigeria, unless we are not serious about it, we operate on worldwide taxation principle. If I can still remember, it means
Prof, we just have to leave this conversation here. Earlier, my colleague said you were chartered for this conversation. I know that you've done justice to this conversation with your wealth of experience and knowledge. So thank you so much, Professor Godwin Oyedokun, for your time and your thoughts on this development.
Thank you so much.
Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.